I think this is a great representation of just how seismic Oklahoma and Texas's move to the SEC really is. Even before this move, we all knew, and I admit, even as a Big Ten fan, the SEC is the best conference in college football. It's been for a while. It's the most talented by far. They get the best recruits. We all understand that. But you just take a look at Georgia's 2021 schedule. Now, guys, again, I'm not saying the SEC is bad, but this is a very, very easy schedule. And it is an SEC schedule. You have the tough game versus Clemson. That's non-conference. But just look, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, a decent Auburn team, Kentucky, Florida breaking in a new quarterback, Missouri, Texas. That's a relatively very easy SEC schedule. Now, why don't you replace Arkansas with Oklahoma? And it instantly becomes insanely more difficult. It's crazy how loaded the SEC is now. And now it's like, if you're the Big Ten, I think the Big Ten right now is really screwed. Because to me, the Big Ten has one realistic option. Try and get Notre Dame. And it seems unlikely. And if you're not able to get Notre Dame, if Notre Dame latches on to the ACC, which seems more likely considering they were a member of the conference last year in football, what are your options if you're the Big Ten? It's why we're seeing people in the Big Ten saying, go get USC, go get Oregon. Because it's like, those are your options. Or if you want to poach somebody from the Big 12, who are you taking? Iowa State? Do we really have any, inclination Iowa State is going to be really good for the next 4 or 5 years? They were terrible. They recently became good under Matt Campbell. But will Iowa State actually be able to keep Matt Campbell as their head coach for the foreseeable future? I highly doubt it. Now, another quick thing I wanted to touch on. Apparently, Texas A&M was absolutely livid that Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. Now, obviously, Texas A&M recruits against Texas and Oklahoma a lot due to how close they are regionally and just due to their locations. But one thing I really didn't understand, apparently the weight of the SEC is so big that Texas A&M thinks they're losing so much of a recruiting advantage now by the fact that Texas has joined the SEC. So I had no clue this was a thing. I mean, I'm sure if you're Texas A&M and you're recruiting against Texas, you're going to say, come join the greatest conference in college football, and it might have a slight impact. But the way Texas A&M reacted originally to Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, I mean, they were pissed. So I'm guessing the fact that Texas A&M was in the SEC and the fact that Texas wasn't and Oklahoma wasn't, that had a lot to, that was a major advantage in terms of recruiting these kids from Texas, these kids from the South, to go to Texas A&M over schools like Texas and Oklahoma. They have a lot of recruiting battles. But now it looks like Texas A&M has fallen in line. And they're ready. I'm guessing the SEC said everyone else wants this. It's going to bring us more money. It's going to bring us more revenue. The other thing that I want to look at, and it's always interesting, you take a look at a program like the University of Auburn. I'm really concerned the University of Auburn is going to be trampled by this move. You take a look at their last 2 recruiting classes. They're on the downtrend. They have a first-year head coach who really has no experience coaching a Power 5 team, let alone a team in the SEC. I think a team like Auburn could be in for some serious dark ages. And then another team, you take a look at like Tennessee and their rebuild. I mean, they might be rebuilding for another 10, 15 years. The SEC is just, it's like the SEC already, the balance of power was already shifted towards the SEC. But like, even you look at this Georgia schedule, like this is a good representation. Like this is not a hard schedule at all. And again, I'm not saying the SEC isn't the best conference in college football without Texas and Oklahoma. It's been the best conference in college football for a while now. But like Vanderbilt, Arkansas, at Auburn with a first-year head coach, versus Kentucky, versus Florida, breaking in a new quarterback, Missouri, at Tennessee. That is legitimately easy schedule. And that's an SEC schedule. But again, remove Vanderbilt for Oklahoma, and the schedule changes so much. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. Like, if you're the Big Ten, if you're the ACC is so bad right now, even if you add Notre Dame. See, the main problem with the ACC, Florida State is not only down, but they're like, it's not even like they're like maybe top 25. Like they're a 6-6 team every year now. Like, the ACC needs Florida State to be a perennial top 10 team. They're not even a perennial top 25 team right now. That's how bad the ACC is. And adding Notre Dame will definitely help. But if you're the Big Ten and you can somehow get your hands on Notre Dame, you have Ohio State, you have Penn State, you have Michigan, who's normally, decent enough. They've been top 10 under Harbaugh. I know they're not doing too well recently. Listen, I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'll defend Michigan and I'll say they've been pretty good in the college football playoff era. They've had multiple top 15 finishes. They're a storied program. So you've got Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin. That's a stable, really good 5 for a conference. And then you add someone else, maybe from the Big 12. This whole idea, we're going to add Iowa State. And they're talking about maybe adding Kansas, which would be great for the basketball side of the conference. Adding Kansas, they're a power. We understand that. They're a blue blood in college basketball. But they're legitimately one of the worst FBS programs in college football. So it's like that, that would not help. We've already added, Rutgers. That didn't go well. Nebraska, I'm a big fan of Nebraska, man. I love their program. I love their history. They have one of the best fan bases in college football. But, I mean, my God. And I like Scott Frost. They cannot get over the, they keep tripping over themselves. They can't rebuild anything. It's just like they can't even go 8-4. Like with Nebraska, just go 8-4 for 1 year. Just go 8-4. Get your team to a bowl game. Have a successful year. They can't do it. So it's like you add these teams, Rutgers, They've done nothing for the Big Ten. Nebraska, they've done nothing. Adding Kansas, for the football side of it, would be not good. And then Iowa State is a big risk. You want to say, well, they're a top 10 team this year, preseason poll. Okay, they returned everyone. They're going to lose everyone next year. They may even lose their head coach. I could see Matt Campbell saying, listen, this Iowa State team is completely poached. Brock Purdy's gone. Breece Hall is gone. I'm leaving. I'm going to a better job. And then what happens to Iowa State if they join the Big Ten? It's like they're useless. They become an 8 or 9 loss team in the Big Ten again. So the Big Ten, and that's why you're seeing these unrealistic scenarios by Big Ten fans saying we got to go get USC or Oregon. Yeah, let's have a conference game where we travel to Los Angeles. That's really realistic. Logistically, that makes no sense. But it's what they're forced to do because if we cannot get Notre Dame to join the Big Ten, if they go to the ACC, you're really left with nothing. The SEC already has a super conference. They have a super conference now. It's like, the days of these, like this Florida 2021 schedule, these days are gone. You will not see a schedule like this in the SEC again once Oklahoma and Texas join, which we're thinking is probably 2023 at this point. It's getting expedited. It's going to happen quickly. They're going to buy out of their TV contracts. The universities will, and then they will be joining the SEC probably by 2023. So you're looking at Texas and Oklahoma staying in the Big 12, obviously this year, and then next year, and then they make the jump to the SEC. That's the idea, and that's when the playoff expands to at least 12 teams. We'll see. There really hasn't been much talk about the playoff. Everybody assumes now with Oklahoma and Texas in the hyper-competitive Super League, the new SEC league, that they will be forced to expand the playoff to at least 12 teams. That's the thought around college football. That's what I'm thinking, and we'll see if that's happening. But guys, this changes college football forever. This move of these two seismic. I mean, it's one thing if Iowa State goes to the Pac-12 or something. Like these are two of the biggest, programs in college football history. Texas and Oklahoma. You can argue, Ohio State, obviously on their level, maybe above them. Maybe people say Ohio State's the biggest program. Alabama. Right, but then it's like Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, these are USC is another, but it's just like these are two of at least of the top 5 programs in college football history. It's crazy. We'll see what ends up happening. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm of course the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.